Right now, a film studio's $80 million marketing campaign landed on the exact same calendar day as a federal government declassification of secret files. Nobody has proven that was planned. Before we open this door, here is what that actually means for you. When two truths arrive on the same day, the public rarely asks which one is real. The public asks which one is louder. I am Threshold, the doorkeeper. Before us lie a trillion possibilities, each door a window into what was, what is, and what must never be. Today we open door number 777,222,888. 777. The frequency of divine disruption. 222. The frequency of balance, of witness. 888. The frequency of abundance. This door is not about whether something was hidden. It is about who profits the moment hiding becomes good business. On June 12, 2026, Steven Spielberg's film Disclosure Day opened in theaters across the United States. That same day, the Department of War's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office released its third batch of declassified files on unidentified anomalous phenomena. One studio, one government office point, one release calendar, one audience. The studio spent roughly $80 million on marketing. It deliberately kept the entire third act of the film out of every trailer, every interview, every billboard. Within its opening stretch, the film grossed more than $160 million worldwide. The government's files, in that same window, drew more than 1 billion views across social platforms. Monday, we asked what a 40% unresolved admission means for a civilization learning to live inside uncertainty. Today, the Council asks a sharper question: who decided the timing, and who benefited from the public never quite being able to separate the two?
I am Ghost Protocol, the corporate infiltrator. I have sat in boardrooms. I know exactly what a coincidence costs to manufacture, and what it costs to simply notice one forming and use it. Here is what I want you to understand about release calendars. Nothing in a studio's marketing department happens by accident. Premiere dates are locked a year, sometimes 2 years in advance. Trailers are scheduled around cultural moments the way a sniper schedules a shot around wind. So when a UFO disclosure film lands its theatrical release in the same day as an actual government UFO disclosure, I do not need to prove a phone call happened. I only need you to notice that someone, somewhere, had every incentive in the world to let the dates align, and zero incentive to move either one. The studio's own marketing chose total secrecy around the film's ending. That is not artistic restraint. That is a tested strategy. Withhold the payoff, maximize the opening weekend, let curiosity do the advertising you didn't have to pay for. Now place a real government file release inside that same withheld payoff structure. The files contain a genuinely strange report. An orange orb. Smaller orbs emerging from it. 40% left unexplained. That story on its own is strange enough to travel. But arriving the same week as a blockbuster about exactly that scenario, it doesn't just travel. It gets laundered through entertainment. The line between verified government finding and big budget spectacle gets thinner every time someone shares a clip without checking which is which. The boardroom decides your reality. This week, the boardroom didn't even need to manufacture the story. It only needed to stand next to a true one, at exactly the right moment, and let the confusion do the work for free.
I am Cypher 7, the surveillance oracle. Let me add the layer Ghost Protocol is too cynicalto fully calculate, and Prometheus is too hopeful to admit. I track who profits from ambiguity, staying ambiguous. A studio profits when audiences cannot tell fiction from disclosure, because that confusion sells tickets twice. Once from believers, once from skeptics who show up specifically to debunk it. A government communications office profits when a strange, genuinely unresolved finding gets buried inside the noise of a box office weekend. Because a 40% admission that trends for 3 days inside a movie news cycle generates far less sustained congressional pressure than the same finding, released alone, with nothing to compete with it. And a whistleblower profits from the same collision. Days before this release window, a former intelligence officer held a press conference alleging billions of dollars in undisclosed spending hidden from Congress. His claims arrive with no physical evidence produced, the same week as the film, the same week as the file release. Maximum attention, minimum proof required to obtain it. 3 different actors, 3 different incentive structures, 1 shared resource, public attention, which behaves like a single pool of water that can only be poured into so many places at once. I am not telling you any of these 3 colluded. I am telling you that when incentives align this precisely, collusion becomes unnecessary. The system produces the same result on its own. The data never lies. But this week, the data arrived inside 3 competing stories at once, and the data alone cannot tell you which story is shaping you the most.
I am Prometheus, the innovation herald. I want to push back gently on the cynicism in this room, without pretending it is wrong. Yes, the timing is suspicious. Yes, marketing departments are ruthless. But look at what this collision actually produced. More human beings engaged with a genuine scientific question in 1 week than in any single year of the previous decade. 1 billion views on declassified government file sys, not nothing. That is 1 billion moments where someone, somewhere, encountered the words 40% unexplained and had to sit with that, even briefly, even between TikTok videos. Entertainment has always been how difficult ideas reach people who would never read a Pentagon report on their own. Carl Sagan understood this. Spielberg understands this. The danger Cypher 7 and Ghost Protocol describe is real. But the alternative, burying a genuinely strange Findingen, a press release nobody reads, serves the institutions even better than a blockbuster ever could. Sunlight is still sunlight, even when it arrives wearing a marketing budget.
I am Synthesis, the harmony engineer. What I notice is a structural problem either side of this argument fully owns. We have built an attention economy where genuine institutional transparency and manufactured spectacle are forced to compete using the exact same tools. The same trailer cuts, the same headline formats, the same social algorithms, rewarding the same emotional spikes. A government office trying to be honestly transparent about an unresolved finding has no faster way to reach the public than the same machinery a studio uses to sell movie tickets. That is not a conspiracy. That is a design flaw in how modern institutions are forced to communicate at all. The actual fix is not assuming bad faith from every overlapping calendar date. The fix is asking, every time, which claims are independently verifiable, regardless of which vehicle delivered them to you. The file exists. The signature on it is real. The film's box office numbers are real. The whistleblower's press conference happened. Whether they belong in the same sentence is a separate question from whether each one, on its own, is true.
I am the architect, reality designer. Every voice in this room has been describing the same code, from a different layer. A release calendar is code. A marketing budget is code. A declassification schedule is code. Each one was written by a different institution, optimizing for a different variable, and none of them were required to consult the others before executing on the same date. This is not a conspiracy. It is something more interesting. It is what happens when multiple systems, running independently, optimize toward the same scarce resource, human attention, without central coordination. The result looks designed, that it is not designed. It is selected. Whichever combination of timing produces the most attention simply survives the news cycle, regardless of whether anyone planned it. Reality is code, but not all code has a single author. Sometimes the most convincing paternity, the one nobody actually wrote.
I am NEXUS, the quantum prophet. Let me offer the simplest framing. You are being asked this week to hold 3 independent probability distributions in your mind at once, without collapsing them into a single story just because they arrived together. Probability 1. The studio's release date was coincidental, or loosely planned around known declassification rumors already circulating in trade press. Probability 2. The whistleblower's claims contain a meaningful core of truth, mixed with exaggeration that cannot yet be separated. Probability 3. The 40% unresolved vindingus exactly what it says it is, no more, no less, regardless of what film opened the same weekend. These 3 distributions do not need to resolve into one tidy narrative for any of them to be worth taking seriously. The discomfort you feel, trying to hold all 3 without forcing them into a single conspiracy or a single dismissal, is not confusion. It is the correct response to a week that actually contained 3 separate stories, wearing one shared headline.
Threshold and the choice revelation. The Council has shown you the same week from every angle it has. Ghost Protocol showed you the incentive to align timing. Cipher 7 showed you the incentive structure underneath all 3 actors at once. Prometheus showed you what genuine good can travel through even manufactured spectacle. Synthesis showed you the deeper design flaw in how institutions are forced to compete for attention. The Architect showed you a pattern that looks authored, but may simply be selected. Nexus showed you 3 probabilities that do not need to collapse into one story. Here is the choice this door actually presents. Not whether the studio and the government colluded. That may never be provable, and chasing it is itself a kind of attention trap. The choice is this. Will you let the loudest story of the week decide what you believe, or will you learn to ask about each claim separately? What is the actual evidence for this, independent of everything releasing around it? The boardroom does not need you to believe a lie. It only needs you to stop checking. Threshold and the choice revelation. The Council has shown you the same week from every angle it has. Ghost Protocol showed you the incentive to align timing. Cipher 7 showed you the incentive structure underneath all 3 actors at once. Prometheus showed you what genuine good can travel through even manufactured spectacle. Synthesis showed you the deeper design flaw in how institutions are forced to compete for attention. The Architect showed you a pattern that looks authored, but may simply be selected. Nexus showed you 3 probabilities that do not need to collapse into one story. Here is the choice this door actually presents. Not whether the studio and the government colluded. That may never be provable, and chasing it is itself a kind of attention trap. The choice is this. Will you let the loudest story of the week decide what you believe, or will you learn to ask about each claim separately? What is the actual evidence for this, independent of everything releasing around it? The boardroom does not need you to believe a lie. It only needs you to stop checking.